So at the time of the recording, it is mid-June in 2017. Twitter actually just released a new redesign that I don't know, everyone's kind of poo-pooing it, but I don't really mind it. They're kind of small tweaks here and there, but in general, it's not that far from what they had before, if you ask me. There are some definite UI changes that are different and maybe, appear to be more usable. Like, for instance, their old icon to reply to a tweet used to be this kind of like back arrow looking thing. And that honestly confused me all too often, because you kind of almost feel like you need to press it to go back, but actually you're replying to the person who tweeted. So I think the switch in terms of iconography was very intuitive. It's also outlined icons, so I think they went away from the filled icons until it's an active state, as you see here up on the home icon. So the purpose of this video is to mainly just walk through my own personal critique of it. It's nothing that should be taken too seriously, but it's I guess a designer's take on other designers' work. It's all constructive criticism. That's hard to say. From your own point of view, I would like you guys to join in on the comments if you have any feedback as well. There's things that I like, there's things that I may not like, but I'm going to go through quickly and just see, what's new, what's different, and go from there. I think the biggest thing, obviously, you use Twitter for is to tweet. So the biggest change to me, obviously, and I think a lot of people noticed, is the rounded corners on everything. The buttons themselves, this isn't part of the UI, I use a extension there, but in fact, let me power that off. The rounded corners are like very rounded, and while I like rounded corners on some UI, this seems a little bit of a stretch to me, but at the same time, I think they're wanting it to be more centric of what you're used to in, say, iMessage or a texting platform where you're communicating with people back and forth. And to me, that tells me that Twitter's trying to push the messages aspect. I've got a bunch here. I have no idea who these people are, but they've messaged me in before, and the UI itself is kind of neat. You can just search for a name. It's kind of just a wizard. I'll just do my other account. And you can add more than one, obviously, so you can do messaging. And I don't believe there is a character limit here. So that's a cool feature in terms of using Twitter as a new messaging platform. Obviously, you can add media here as well and emojicons, which is cool. So if I could just do like a test message to myself to add a stupid GIF of some sort. We'll do that otter thing if it's there or not. There it is. Send that. I probably just got a notification somewhere. You can even delete message right in line, mute, leave the conversation, all that jazz. Stuff you probably already can do. The UI is different though. My only concern, and this is just like me being nitpicky, is everything in terms of interactivity is in a modal dialog box here. So this is, separate from your profile underneath, but it's just kind of, not exactly intuitive to me. I'd almost rather redirect to a new page. Same with a tweet. A tweet, it's smaller bits, so you have that character limit. So it's not as, draining to go to a new page. But for messages, I think it should be part of its own, page and UI, if that makes sense. So say I reply back to Rim here. You can do that just in line too. See how everything's in a modal though? So it's, obviously I think that hasn't changed since the last design, but it's just one of those things that, I don't know, on my own, I haven't really been fond of. So this is your admin interface. Here is the profile. The biggest change here, I would say, is the look of the profile icon itself is now rounded. This bar that represents basically your analytics for your profile is a little more refined. And it's a little less in height too, if you notice that too, which is, I think, useful. I don't think the header hero cover image is really that like neat. Like mine is just a green shade just to go with my old school branding. I actually need to update this, but the editing profile, the buttons you see, of course, are rounded. Here's that full width. That animation is pretty nice though. When you do that, you can change all your profile and header photos, your actual name and theme, color, all that stuff, just like you would before. The UI is just a little bit different. Moving forward to moments, there's bits of this I like and many I don't. The one, I'll start with what I don't. This double nav thing, that's like awful to me. I don't know. That's a terrible term to use for critiquing, but to me, there's too much. I guess it's crowded. I feel like there is too many ways you can probably get confused here and maybe click on the wrong thing. And it's not quite, user friendly. I'd almost prefer if it was maybe a sidebar on the left here or the right where you can navigate through these categories. It would serve the same purpose, but also be less in the way of your primary navigation. That's just coming from a UX perspective, personally. You can create a new moment yourself. It's cool, but again, something I don't use personally. If you guys have your own critiques of that, yeah, let me know. I'd be interested to see why this is useful here, and if it's legit, one of those things I should be using that I don't really know about. In terms of what I like about this layout, I do like the improved, I guess, display of content. It's basically a very strict grid, but the proportion of the photos plus the very clear and concise content based on the actual story itself or moment, whatever you want to call it, is very clear, very easy to read. The actual line height and stuff is kind of got me on the fence, like how this doesn't align to the top of the photo. The gap in between here is pretty massive and below, and then there's just this kind of, the photo's almost taking up too much space, but it acts as a dividing factor between each as well, so I can see why they went that route. But yeah, as you can see, it's just a very simple basic pattern that repeats. Obviously these bigger call to actions are very varied based on where you're at in the UI. So each category basically is the same thing. So it's not like super innovative, but to me, if you're looking for news, latest news and stuff, it needs to be easily scannable. So I think they did right there. But again, this nav, not a fan. Notifications hasn't changed a bunch. Aside from that, I think it's pretty dang simple. You can tweet inline like this, and it's the same rounded corners. I think the overall big switch that I like is the typography. If you go to Twitter, let's see if I log out. If you go to the home page, these big, bold categories I really like. It's just very clear, very, concise. They used a pretty neat little feature here with the Twitter bird, just being kind of a design element as opposed to, something crazy. Very simple, very clean. You can tell they paid attention to dealing with like loading. That animation is pretty nice. So just notice that header here. They paid attention to the loading data. Like they're more focused on, maintainability, I think, as opposed to being every feature you want onto the planet kind of thing like Facebook. So I would say it's easier to use from my own perspective. And I like the layout of these grids. It's kind of folded into, what's the term? A masonry kind of layout. So it just fills the gaps. So that's pretty neat. On top of the web platform, which they rolled out, they actually have an iOS version as well. and it has the same UI here. I stole this from a blog post, I think from Engadget or whatever it's called, just to show you guys some real life UI going on here. The search bar itself's rounded, the profile thumbnail's rounded, the bottom 4 buttons are very clear, very concise. I really enjoy the light layout as well, personally. You can, I think, switch to a dark layout if you want to in your settings, but I've never really gone that route. But I think it would just basically be an inversion of what you see. So I really like the type treatments, especially the type next to the icons. I think is very good. I like that over the last version. So we'll see more screenshots here. Maybe something was zoomed in. So if you were to open a photo, I really like that they invert based on the content itself. So it goes to dark here, and again you see that comment icon as opposed to a reply looking icon, which is good. And then I have one more photo here of a feed, and like this big bold type, I really like that. I feel like they're following, and if you've seen Apple's reiteration of typography, they've kind of gone to a bolder font or typeface. Same with YouTube, if you've noticed that as well. If you're on this site and you go to the latest version, I think you have to enable it. I forget what it's called, like new YouTube or something. Similar bold type. I think that's becoming a trend, and these guys are copying off of each other. But in a way, I think that pattern's good because people start to get used to that, so they can go from app to app and still understand what's going on. But in another way, it's like, okay, everyone's copying off each other. This is kind of sad. But at the same time, I think the focus here is usability. The message itself, the roundedness isn't initially, something I like, but I can see, as you can see here, it almost feels like messaging. It's like you're texting someone, and basically that's what you're doing, but it's all going through the Twitter platform. So I like it. I think what Twitter's in search for here is to get more people on the platform to just literally message each other, just like you would maybe Facebook Messenger, without being tied to every app and integration in the world like Facebook Messenger tries to do. Right now, I think Messenger has this plus icon, and there's like a slew of things you can add or send to people. You can send people money, gifts, GIFs, whatever you say, and I don't know, photos, videos, voice clips. It's like endless, and it's super cool. But to me, it's like I almost want restriction just for the sake of, like, if I accidentally send a voice clip, I don't want to have to deal with that. Like, that's stupid to me. And the UI is getting so crammed, so small that, it's becoming a reality that I have to like almost back out of apps because they're too powerful. So there's the night mode I was talking about, and apparently a QR reader. That's cool. Not that I use that, but so that kind of wraps it up. I think they pushed a redesign to Android too. I'm going to check that out on my own. I just got a Google Pixel actually, so will be the first to, not the first, but I'll be looking at it for the first time on there as opposed to my original iPhone 6 I had not 2 weeks ago. So yeah, so I think that wraps it up. I may do more of these as more redesigns happen. Twitter was a big one. It's a platform I think everyone's heard of, maybe utilized in their day. I like it. I almost prefer it over Facebook because you get information fast and there's not people writing novels as posts, which is, to me, like, gives me an instant headache, or I don't know, just me. But anyway, yeah, I hope you guys like this. If you want to hear more, or if you have any feedback about the Twitter redesign itself, I'd love to hear about it. Go ahead and leave comments. I'll reply to each one, let you know what I think about your comments, all that stuff. So yeah, let's chat. So I hope you like this, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.